Okay. Okay. So I guess next door's plum tree is a third lighter than it was before. I'm so glad it fell in that direction and not on the studio roof. But that's a big old bit of tree, that. What, 20 foot-ish? Hiya folks, welcome back to the show, and in the realms, if you couldn't make it up, we were hit by Storm Arwen, a month ago-ish? 2 months ago maybe? And we're now in the midst of Storm Malik. This is very unusual. I've never seen winds like this before in the northeast of England, and it's causing some damage. Fortunately, fingers crossed, so far, the extension's all holding out fine. The tarpaulin, we'll see how long the tarpaulin lasts. I don't particularly want to take it out because just crap's getting blown into the extension, and if it starts raining, then I don't particularly want rain getting blown into the back here. We're still waiting on windows and the bifolds. They're not coming till mid-February. So at the moment, tarpaulin's going to have to do, but in slightly more exciting news, as you can probably see at the back there, I've started putting the joists in. Now at the moment, they're only just kind of resting on top of the wall plates, nothing's really attached, because I think this would be quite a good one to show you my process for doing all of this. Again, I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong way, but I'm just saying this is the way I'm going to tackle a project like this. And I figured I might as well show you all the way from the very, very start. The sleeper walls are in. Got Alan back for half a day to quickly shove the sleeper walls in. He did in a couple of hours what it would take me best part of like at least a day, if not 2 days to do. What we've managed to do here is at the bifold door area is just go for a single sleeper wall with one 50mm wall plate on top, and then everywhere else a single sleeper wall, so honeycomb sleeper wall, damp proof membrane on top, and then a double wall plate, and that pretty much has taken us to the exact height we need for level joists all the way around. But as I say, these aren't attached in yet because I still need to make all the noggins and all that sort of thing. I'm going to make the noggins first, and then we'll attach the noggins as we go, and then that guarantees a perfect distance between each joist, and in turn that makes fitting the insulation much, much easier. So first job's to make all the noggins, and then I'll start fixing this all in place. But the crux of it is that we're getting very close to having a floor in the rear extension, and we've already got a floor in the upstairs extension, which I'll show you very quickly now. So I think I mentioned on a previous episode that we needed to get the garage ceiling in. So obviously we had to get the joists in, the garage ceiling in, so that we could get the flue for the boiler in. Mrs. Mack has already mist coated the ceiling, so that's all kind of ploughing on. We still need to do a lot of the detail work, like intumescent sealing around all the edges and just tidying things up. Mrs. Mack has also made a start on sorting the downstairs cupboard out, because this is all just getting kind of, you can't really see anything. I'll show you that once it's done, because it's too dark to show you anything in there. Head upstairs, and briefly touched on this on a previous video where we're talking about insulation, depending on the order that these come out in, but I think we did mention that the floor was in. We are also now at the stage where all of the angled parts of the ceiling are insulated, ready for plasterboard, and then we can plaster the ceiling as well, get all that done. But I'll very briefly talk about the floor in here. Unfortunately, it's really dark in here, so it's a little bit difficult to kind of film stuff in any kind of decent way. Oh no! Ugh. Our insulation's blown out of our window. I thought I heard something weird. Man. There's another jar. Oh, I'll sort that later. Anyway, so the lay of the land with this floor is that it's all insulated underneath, and all of the way rock flooring, the chipboard flooring, it's all cut to size At the moment, every board is only held in with 2 screws because we've still got to get a whole load of underfloor services under here. But at the same time, I want to get the ceiling plasterboarded, so it's nice and quick to just chuck this floor down, get everything cut to size, and then we can take it back up again after the ceiling is plasterboarded. But what I did want to very quickly talk about was the join between the old floor and the new floor. As you can see, we've pretty much got the join spot on. I would say it's probably within a millimetre, if that. So it's enough that I can just quickly go around with the belt sander once, like final job before carpets go down. I'll just belt sander that edge so that it's perfect. Otherwise you can end up with like a little ridge showing in the carpet. Even just with a 1 or 2 millimetre discrepancy between floor heights, you can get a ridge. So I would say that's about 1 millimetre. So I will sand it down, get it absolutely perfect between the joins. If you manage to get it that accurate to within 1 millimetre, I think you're doing pretty well. But that's all worked out absolutely great. I'm very pleased about that. We've already got the electrics running in, so basically the electrics will just dig into the ring and it's coming up there. We'll run a cable across horizontally to that one and then down, and then the other end of that will break into the ring kind of under the floor over here-ish. The one thing that's kind of at the back of my mind here is that once the walls are dot and dabbed, it's not going to be easy to get this floor up. So I do want to get as many underfloor services in as possible. But the general rule of thumb here is that I'm going to keep as much above floor level as possible. I do need to get a hot and cold water supply around and up somewhere into the ensuite. We need to get the central heating pipes around and up somewhere into the ensuite. And we also need to think about what we're doing with the wastewater as well. So once I've kind of got my head around all of that, no massive rush, then we can get the floor permanently fixed down, and then we're in a position to get the dot and dab done. Anyway, I'll quickly fix that, and yeah, let's head downstairs and we'll talk about doing the floor from scratch in the kitchen. Right, first lot of joists in. That's the first half of the room. I can't do the rest of the room because we need to get all of this stuff shifted over to the other side of the room, and then that'll clear this area ready for putting the joists on this side. But let me talk you through my whole process, my methodology here. So we started off with a single joist going through the wall at the bottom here, with the joist pressed hard up against the floorboards on the other side of the wall, and then we made sure that that was perfectly level, and I had it suspended kind of in mid-air with a couple of bits of wood underneath it just to kind of hold it in place. And Bricky Alan used that as the reference point for getting the height of the wall plates. Now, the original plan was to shim the wall plates, but Alan's done such an amazing job on the wall plates that there have been pretty much no need to shim anything. So, as I say, he used that joist that was in the middle there as a reference point, and that set the height of the wall plate in front of the bifold. So you can see we've got a sleeper wall. Sleeper wall is just honeycomb brickwork, so engineering bricks with a gap between each brick, damp-proof course between the top of the bricks and the wall plate, and then the joists sit on the wall plate. In front of the bifold, we've just used a single wall plate. Everywhere else, we've gone for double wall plates. So, in other words, two wall plates attached onto each other. And to get the heights of all these, again, for the middle section here, we used the joist that was going across the middle as a reference point, and that set the height for that, all the way left to right, perfectly level. And the same for the little wall plate at the back and the wall plate over there. So they all refer to each other, and just to show you what an amazing job Alan's done. I mean, there's a tiny little bit of shimming over here, and to be honest, that can be more from a discrepancy in the size of the wood than anything else. But do keep your levels handy, level everything as you go. There is no going back once this is all nailed in place. But just to show you, I don't know if you can see the vial on that, but we are absolutely perfect left to right. And on the big level here, we are absolutely perfect front to back. Over here next to the door as well, if you can make that out, you can see that is absolutely on the button as well. So I started off by cutting a whole load of noggins, and the noggins are just cut from offcuts from the joists, and I've cut them at 355 millimeters each, and that is because the joists are about 45 millimeters wide, and that gives us our 400 centers, if that can focus. So we're on the center there, and we're on the center over there. And then you probably saw I attached the noggins here and here on via the other side of the joist before it was in place. Otherwise you have to kind of toe nail it in, and I prefer to end nail it in if possible. Doesn't matter if you have to toe nail it in, there's plenty of other stuff toe nailed in on this, but I had the opportunity to do that, I might as well do it. I also wrapped a little bit of damp-proof membrane around the end of the joist down that gap there, mainly because that's an awkward one to get to later. Basically, we're very slightly below the damp-proof course here, so anywhere you've got the joist potentially touching damp walls, I mean, we've got a gap at the end of the joist, so it's not going to happen, but you should really put a little bit of damp-proof membrane around the end of the joists. I just put the end joist about 20 mil away from the wall, again just so there's no chance of damp penetrating through the joist. And then by fitting the noggins as we go, it just means that we get an absolutely perfect gap between each joist, and that makes fitting the insulation way easier later down the line, because it means I can just cut all of the insulation in advance, all exactly the same size, and it should all just kind of slot into place, or at least that's kind of the plan. Obviously no noggins above the sleeper walls, because you need to allow airflow over the top of the sleeper walls underneath, but basically as much airflow as humanly possible under the floor. What I also did, you might have seen us messing about with a bit of string, is that I've run a string line from that end joist all the way up to the top joist, and I've just got all of those ends in a perfect kind of plane. They're all in line with each other, because once we knock this wall out, I might end up having to attach like a ledger board onto the end of these joists. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that yet. Until I get this wall out and see the joists on the inside, we shall see. What we might end up doing is just resting joists on this new sleeper wall here. But if I do have to attach a board onto the end of these joists, it's going to be a lot easier if they're all in line with each other. And then once I'm all done, I've made sure that there's a bit of a gap at the end of the joists, and I'm going to run damp-proof membrane down the back of the joists once I'm finished. I'll show you that later on. I'm going to get the rest of the room done, which is going to entail moving everything over onto here, making a little temporary floor over here. That'll be kind of nice. I'll be able to actually walk on this properly for the first time. I can tell you straight away, it feels absolutely solid. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff to move. I'm not going to show you that. Doubtless Mrs. Mac will probably end up helping with it as well. Put some of these floorboards down, shift all of this insulation here, shift this giant mountain of insulation here as well, free up this side of the room and get the remaining joists put in. And I will come back to you once that's all done. Right, we're on to the next day now, and as you can see, all the remaining joists are in. And at this point, I was going to put some temporary flooring down over this side so that we can get all the plasterboard and all that sort of thing delivered for this room, because at the moment we don't have the plasterboard for this room, and we don't have the bags of plaster and all that sort of thing that we're going to need for the upstairs bedroom. Now, the plasterer has just been out, and he wants to start in 2 weeks' time. Now, this room definitely isn't going to be ready in 2 weeks' time, but the upstairs bedroom potentially is. Now, the reason for only putting temporary flooring down over here for the minute is that we've got quite a lot of underfloor services to run. We've got radiator pipe work, we've got gas, we've got the hot water, we've got electrics and all sorts of other things that potentially need to go under the floor. But if we find a different route, which means that they don't have to go under the floor, then we might as well do the permanent flooring on this side, which means we need to get the insulation done. That will end up being our next job. Now, bear in mind that this whole section of wall here is going to be framed out because of, you know, our nuke. We've talked about the nuke before. Not nuke, it's like the jutty in bit on the wall here. It juts in by like 60 mil. So what we're going to do is we're going to frame this out to make this whole wall flat, effectively. We don't want a jut on this wall. Oh, and a lot of people asked about this funny brick thing. We have no idea what it is, and we don't know anyone who knows what it is. I think it's some sort of vent, because there's like a bit, you can get your finger round, and there's a hole that seems to go kind of through the wall there. We're going to keep that and leave it popping through the plasterboard to keep it as kind of a thing, because we think it's original to the house and it's probably quite a nice thing to keep. If anyone does definitively know what it is, then please let us know in the comments below. But anyway, the point is that this whole section of wall from here onwards is going to be framed out by at least 50 mil. So that gives an enormous area behind the plasterboard where we can run pipes and all sorts of things. So the general consensus now is that we'll bring all of the pipe work through the wall up there somewhere. We've got the gas, hot water and cold water that'll come through there. It can then go to the corner or something, drop down, and it can just run like behind cabinets and stuff along here. So that can go in after the plastering's been done. And then on a similar note, we've got the hot and cold return from the central heating from the boiler, which is on the other side of that wall. And we'll bring a hot and cold down the bottom of the wall. It can be inside the framing at the bottom there, and then it can supply a radiator over here somewhere. That'll be absolutely fine. And that just leaves a radiator in that corner over there. And to get the pipe work to that, we'll just bring it in the boxing along the top here that the soil pipe's going to be in, because we're going to be putting boxing all the way along the top here, bringing that out a little bit. And we can run all sorts of things in that. So we'll run the hot and cold, sorry, not hot and cold, we'll run the flow and return, we can run any electric cables, anything like that can run in the boxing up there. So, to cut a long story short, that means that we don't need to put anything under the floor, which I much prefer, because once this is all insulated and the floor's down, it's not going to be easy getting underneath this. So if anything ends up leaking over time or anything like that, you would never really ever know about it. So the more stuff that runs above floor level, the better, in my view, and I think that is the route that we're going to go down. In which case, our next job is going to be to insulate under the floor. There's no point putting anything over here. We might as well just make a start on the insulation and all the battening and everything. So I'm going to get that done and come back to you once we're ready to put the actual floor down, and then we'll talk a little bit about that, and then that's kind of it. Oh, and in the meantime, check this out. Mrs. Mac is very, very busy and has been turning that broken tree into a big pile of twigs that's ready to go in the skip. As you can see, our skip pile is now ridiculous, so we've got the skip coming tomorrow, and I think, well, if we're lucky, the twigs and stuff will go on the bottom and this will flatten it out a little bit, but I don't know. We're running into the territory of needing more than one skip. But yeah, nice work, Mrs. Mac. So folks, I think we'll leave it at that for today, because the joists are in and the next job is to get all the insulation done. And I've got a couple of videos, well, at least one video coming up about insulation, because that's like a topic in its own right. And then we need to get the final floor surface down. And again, there's going to be a separate video about that, because there's a lot of little details that I want to talk about, and I don't want this video to be too crazily long. So for now, take care folks, look after one another, be nice, and we shall see you next time. Tatty bye! Little by little